doing better as a result of social media presence.
If it doesn't do those three things, then it's on the chopping block.
It's a return on investment discussion.
Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Daily Dealer Live. I'm your host, Sam Dark, and joining me today is the Yuli DiMartino.
Makes me laugh
Yuli,
every
welcome to
time.
the show. Dude, we've all gone and grown up. This is
Yeah,
cool. Did you
that's
check out
awesome.
that intro package? That was freaking awesome.
I got goosebumps.
Nobody in automotive has this. Nobody. For those joining our live stream today, we remind you we're live streaming across every single CDG social media platform. Post your comments in the feed. We want to bring them into today's show. Your comments will shape the direction and the shape of today's show. So we're excited to have not only our guests who we'll announce here in a minute, but also have you a part of today's show. Check out what we have coming up. Victory Honda on auto loan challenges. And then we've got Checkered Flag JLR on killing haggling, plus a bunch of other topics as we dive in with our guests. But first, let's turn to automotive headlines this Friday morning. So breaking news this Friday morning, according to Cox, if you feel like indirect auto lending is loosening, well, you're right. Auto credit access improved for the second month in a row, according to Cox Automotive's Dealer Track Credit Availability Index, which rose to 97.3 in June. That's up from 96.5 in May. Lenders are approving more borrowers, including subprime applicants, and allowing lower down payments. Signs of either growing confidence or increased competitive pressure. Approval rates rose 70 basis points month over month, while longer loan terms over 72 months and smaller down payments, well, they both increased. What's the bottom line here? Well, looser credit may help sustain sales amid high prices, but it also raises long-term risk, especially with 54.8% of borrowers still underwater. That's over half of all loans out there have negative equity, which will definitely shape the coming months in automotive. Next up this morning, wholesale used vehicle prices. Guess what they did in June? They rose. That, according to Cox Automotive's Manheim Index, climbing 1.6% month over month and 6.3% year over year to 208.5, driven by partly the post-tariff market shifts. And even though non-adjusted prices fell 1.1% from May, a sharper than usual dip, they remain 5.1% higher than last year. Seasonally adjusted wholesale used car prices rose across every major vehicle segment, with luxury models leading the pack, driven by higher demand and limited inventory. Compact cars were the only segment to slip. Interesting. Compact cars reflecting continued consumer preference for larger, higher margin vehicles. But the real standout is used EVs. We've been talking about used EVs, particularly off-lease EVs, which will be coming up. Despite some of the off-lease trends, after a rough 2023, EVs are now showing the biggest recovery in the market, outperforming gas models in both annual and monthly price growth, according to the Manheim Index. As Cox Automotive's analyst Jeremy Robb put it, quote, wholesale appreciation trends have been more volatile over Q2 as tariffs really impacted new sales and supply. Next up today, Nebraska's Attorney General is suing General Motors and OnStar for allegedly collecting and selling sensitive driver data like speed, seatbelt use, and location without driver's knowledge or consent. The state claims the data was used to create, quote, driving scores that insurance companies relied on to raise rates, deny coverage, or even cancel policies. The lawsuit accuses GM of misleading consumers at the point of sale by downplaying the scope of its OnStar connected services and falsely suggesting enrollment was required for basic safety features. In some cases, dealers allegedly signed up customers without any consent at all. This comes on the heels of New York Times expose that triggered federal scrutiny last year, leading GM to shut down its smart driver program and agree to stop selling driver data for 5 years under an FTC order. Big picture, if Nebraska's suit gains traction, it could open the door to other states to follow, adding more penalties and oversight, even as GM navigates federal restrictions. And finally, up this Friday morning, vehicle recalls spiked in Q2 2025 with over, get this, 7.3 million units affected. That's the highest quarterly total since early 24, and that's more than double Q1's 3.46 million, according to Busy Car. Ford dominated the quarter with 3.3 million vehicles recalled across 49 separate campaigns. And some of its biggest issues were with backup cameras, backup prevention systems, engine cooling systems, and hydraulic brake defects. And while about 15% of Q2 recalls were resolved through over-the-air updates, the vast majority still require physical repairs at dealerships, keeping service bays busy, which is not a bad thing in the auto industry. For dealers, that volume represents a major opportunity. Ford's recall load alone could generate hundreds of millions in revenue from required service work and a chance to re-engage customers who might otherwise skip maintenance visits. Props to Busy Car for collecting that data and sharing it with the team here at CDG. So that's a wrap on the news today, Yuli.
It's awesome.
All right, let's dive into our first guest and first conversation. We now turn to General Manager, Victory Honda Jackson. Welcome to the show, Chase Channell. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Chase, we're pumped to have you in the Honda world. So tell us, on this day in July 2025, how the heck is biz in your world?
It's been really good. The month's off to a great start. And, July always, June's always a little softer than July. So it always feels better than, even than it maybe actually is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've got the holiday, which creates some excitement as we go through the month. So you're no stranger to CDG. You've been on the CDG podcast with Yossi before. So this is kind of a follow-up. One of the things that stands out, and Yuli, maybe we can dive into this a little bit, is how engaged you are as a general manager in day-to-day operations there. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy of desking deals in the dealership day-to-day.
Well, I knew I was going to get a little flack when I made that statement on the pod last time. But my thing is that I feel like the car business is a lot like sports. If you have somebody, you want the best batter taking the swing. And, I feel like I'm the best batter in my dealership. So I like to be as involved as I can be and help my associates close their deals or make, whatever the challenge is. What I've learned in this business is that if a salesman gets somebody in and you don't find a way to make that deal, it really deflates them. So if you can step in and help them put their deal together, they'll drag somebody else up there. It builds their confidence.
Yeah, it's key to building that culture and team, Yuli. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, you got to lead from the front, but there's some people that would ask the question then, you being the general manager, obviously you have a large purview. There's a lot of things happening under your rooftop. Are you really desking every deal?
I desk about 80 to 90% of the deals in my store. Obviously there's what I try to do is get there early, knock out what I call my GM duties, get those things out of the way. And then we start having fun and selling cars come 9 o'clock.
How many cars a month do you sell, Chase, at your Honda?
Last month we sold 114. We average about 110 new and used. And that puts us market effective with Honda and keeps us in good graces. And we do about 1-to-1 new to used.
Yuli, give us your take on this. You've got massive experience as a GM. Give the counterpoint to that, because I actually love what Chase is doing here, because he's showing he wants to own everything in that store, and he has the ability to raise the culture of the store single-handedly. Give the counter perspective to that, Yuli.
So the counter to that, obviously, you live and die by the sword, right? You're obviously the most talented person in the dealership, and I heard you on the pod before. I mean, you're sharp. You guys are doing great things. The counter to that is the long-term goal of leadership has always been to elevating the people around us to become even better than us, right? So
That's right.
You being the general manager with having all of that responsibility, coming in early, doing your service duties. I mean, keeping 80 to 90% of the deals desk yourself, aren't you then shortchanging your number two? Shouldn't the goal be then get my GSM to be even better than me on the special finance side?
Well, I definitely think that that's part of it. And we work together with a lot of the deals. I believe in a collaborative approach. The more heads involved, I don't know everything. I like to learn, and I can learn from the new guy as much as I can learn from someone who's 20 or 30 years in. So I think that just more heads together making the decisions, because it's easy to sell cars in a cookie cutter box. What we try to do is look for opportunities that are outside of that. And I feel like that's where you really pick up incremental business.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, standing over, I mean, an example for me, I'd be standing over a GSM, assisting them. We like to work deals backwards, especially. How's your credit mix where you're at?
We're in a subprime market. I mean, we have really good credit here, but we also have really bad. There's
Really
not a whole
bad.
lot in between. Yeah.
And
We're
then
close
you
enough to
understand.
Memphis, it bleeds over.
You understand the nuance in those credit deals. I mean, that's like my bread and butter. It feels like for the better part of my 20-year career was the subprime deals and having to go in backwards, finding the customer, finding the right car, and then trying to smoosh it all together
That's right.
completely opposite to someone coming in with prime credit. So how are you teaching those things to your team?
So one of the things I've actually recently started is I print off customer bureaus and we actually go in and I basically say, here's the credit, here's what they want to buy. This is how much they got down. Tell me what you think. And we walk through it together and I basically give them my perspective. I listen to what they have to say and it should try to make a more cohesive where it's more consistent from the, salespeople when they come to the desk, they don't want to get one answer from one person and then something different from the next. So to try to improve that, we've sat down and it's funny because like I had one last week that the client had like a 460 that was really shaky. They had $600 down, and I told the salesperson, I said, I really don't think there's much here. And I said, but let's just pick out the right car. Let's see what we can do. We were able to get $400 more out of them. We got a call. We put the deal together. And when I showed everyone the credit in the meeting, they're like, "Yeah, there's nothing here. You need." And I was like, "No, the whole deal was bought 157%." I'm like, this is, and it opens your eyes to, hey, we're not the lenders. Let's try to, make the best decisions, uncover all the rocks, but ultimately let's
Let the
let the
bank
banks
say
decide.
no.
So,
Yeah.
Chase, how long
Exactly.
have you been in this role as general manager at the Honda store
I've been in Jackson for 10 years as the general manager.
as GM? Prior
Yeah.
to that, your background is F&I, right? You spent a good deal of time in F&I.
Yeah, I was the general manager for the Rick Case Auto Group in Atlanta, and then I did finance for years with them also. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in the box, as we say.
So when you think about that transition from F&I, which is near and dear to my heart, I spent a couple decades with a Swiss-based insurance company. We taught F&I. How much of your approach as a GM is informed by your experience in F&I?
Oh, geez. It's one of those things that you don't know what you don't know. And I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of GMs out there that probably feel like they really have a good grasp on their dealership. And, in a lot of areas they probably do. But, my guys, it's sometimes I've had this conversation with my GSM before. He'll get a little pushback from the F&I office on a deal. And, the F&I guys are all pessimistic, right? They're the ones that are going to have to deal with everything. And I say, listen, sometimes you got to tell them this is what you're going to do. And, you got to know when to push and when not to push. But really, you also have to be willing to show them you didn't think this was possible. And now look, we got it done. Customers happy. Some of those deals, I think about the onesie, twosies extra deal, right? At the end of any month, an extra one or two deals a day makes a huge difference in any dealership. So if you're
Yeah.
not pushing for those extra incremental deals, you're really missing out.
Yeah. So it's interesting, Yuli, going back to that conversation about being actively engaged at the desk. Chase, you are engaged in every element of operations and sales at that store. I actually think both perspectives can be accurate. I think you do have to develop leadership. You've got to show them and empower them to make decisions and to deliver that excellent automotive experience. But also, I think it's a big debate in automotive right now how engaged and involved at the desk a good general manager should be. And I think I it's my own personal perspective. Chase, be curious yours on this as well. It's my own personal perspective that a good general manager in a store today is super involved at the desk in sales training, involved and engaged with F&I. And I think some of the best GMs come through that F&I role, and they understand the challenge that is
Hmm.
F&I, which is it's a management role without title. You can't hire, you can't fire. You have to lead by
Hmm.
helping people have success. And Chase, so much of what you're saying and how you are how you run your store as a GM kind of reflects that ability to lead by creating a vision and drawing people into that vision, Chase.
Yeah, I believe that if you've came into a dealership and you make it, halfway through the showroom and you haven't met the GM yet, there's probably some missing
Yes.
opportunities. It's the old adage, trust but verify. You know,
Yeah.
if you're letting, because managers are just like salespeople, they'll take the path of least resistance. You know,
Yeah.
they're going to take the easy route, and you want to make sure that at the end of the day, my theory has always been, if this customer could buy this car anywhere in America, we need to say yes and put them down the road. And
Yeah.
so you've got to be able to make the decision. I always tell my guys, I'm never going to be mad at you for delivering a car. You know, if you're making the decision, look at all the information, put the customer in the road, and you made it for the right reasons, we'll figure out a way to make that deal happen. And so if you pass on deals, now we're going to have a different conversation.
Chase, you threw out one of my favorite quotes of all time, and it's, watch this. Проверьте, но доверьте. I got to throw out Russian at some point in this show. Trust
I didn't
but
hear him
verify.
say anything in Russian. Oh, there you
Trust
go.
but verify. That is a great quote. And in automotive, I think as you empower people, training, trusting, and then verifying at the foot of that. So, Chase, turn us to the operations in your Honda store. What is the biggest challenge today at your store as you're running Victory Honda Jackson? What's the biggest challenge in July of 2025?
Well, mine's the same as everyone else in America, acquiring, high quality used cars.
Yeah.
Anybody can fill their lots with, the rental rockets and the stuff that nobody wants, but, finding the right vehicles, taking them in for the right money. And, then obviously that time to frontline ready makes a huge difference. And I think most dealers, including me, we have a busy service department. That reconditioning process is super important. We talk about it all day long, every day. Where's this car? We kind of use the shared log approach so we can all put notes in it. But I think just, getting the right inventory, those cars generate so many leads, it really drives the new car business. And in a market like mine where, we're 130, 140, 150% sales effective, the room for growth is in used cars. So just gaining those pieces is the biggest challenge we face.
Okay, before we ask you what your best source for used cars are, I want to bring in a comment from social media from Bonnie Hoffman. Bonnie says, I've bought several cars and I've never met the GM. Good point.
Oh my gosh.
And here's what I'll tell you, Chase and Yuli, our best store, one of the best stores in our auto group, Racine Honda. So Honda is a great brand. The GM there is very similar to you, Chase, in that he won't allow a customer's hand to touch the door handle without opening that door and greeting that customer into the store. What is it about automotive at the GM level, at some of the executive levels, where it's like, hey, I don't have time to be that customer facing? Customers crave that. If we're going to win the battle in automotive of AI versus human, and AI helps enhance the experience, we still have to lean into that human connection and human experience. And Chase, props to you for doing what you're doing and connecting with the customer. And Yuli, I think you're saying the same thing, but it is cool to see how you're winning every day at that, Yuli, or Chase.
No, and on that, and before Chase answers the question of the used car acquisition, we see this all the time. You get someone that timidly knocks on your door and says like, hey, sorry to bother you, whether it's a customer or an employee. It's never a bother, right?
No.
It's not a bother. I am here for you. I'm here for you, whether you're the customer or an employee. It's not a bother. It is my job. So my desk was always on the showroom floor. It had a door, but it's a glass desk, and I can see the entire showroom. I can see my sales tower, so I can walk in. And if there's a customer that's walking unattended, that's madness. I'm walking out of my office, and we're going to become best friends.
All right, so, we got to bring this. We got to bring this comment in, and then the question on the used car. Yoga Cars says, "How about this? I got a call back from GM on an internet lead at a Volkswagen store. Again, at that level, when someone cares enough to reach out or let you know that they're involved in the process, that's huge. So, Chase, biggest source of used cars,
the service drive.
Okay,
that's hands down. Those customers, they bought them from you. They're servicing them with you. They're in great shape. There's no auction fees. I mean, if the service drive acquisitions is the best place to find high quality used cars.
And what's your process? How are you doing that in your store?
It's a pre-planning process. So we look at all the future day appointments, which cars we would really like to have. And then the main thing is because you don't want to, upset all your service customers from hassling them. You just want to, make a cash offer on their car and say, hey, this is something to think about if you considered it. Obviously, if their car goes bye-bye, they need another one. But you let them put that together. You don't have to, draw the lines for them.
So, what is the thing that you're thinking about a year down the road? Let's go 12 months down the road and you're planning for. What do you think is going to be the next big thing in your Honda store in July of 2026 that you're prepping?
I think a lot about is Honda's going to introduce these EV models, with the change in the administration, the change in some of the sentiment with EV. We're not in a market that really embraces EV. But, for me, I think about, what's that going to look like and how will we continue to drive and capture market share, even with a product that may not be what everyone knows that they want.
Yeah. Oh, I got to bring
It's the Henry Ford saying, if I'd have given them what they want, it would have been faster horses, right?
Yeah. 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 So what are you doing to get there?
Mainly just a lot of training, product training. I feel like if the customer's unsure, if the salesperson's like, yeah, we don't know much either, we don't like them, that really makes that uncertainty grow versus if the salesman can really lean into it and say, hey, let me tell you more about it. So we've really focused on product training and on products that we don't have yet. And I think that in elevating the training and customers will automatically feel more comfortable. The adage I use to my team all the time is with as it pertains to electric cars. When I go to the golf course, I don't care if they give me an electric or a gas golf cart. If it gets me around the course, I'm good. And there's a lot of consumers that are going to be that way.
By the way, Chase, everybody knows it's the gas cart that gets you in trouble when you're golfing. That's the one that you end up trying to do something stupid in and you end up rolling it. So
that's right.
Before we go to a comment by Saved by Zero, I just AI is the buzzword in automotive right now. And someone as engaged as you are day to day, AI helps us enhance that customer experience. What do you see as the value? Is there a tool that you're using? Is there an area where you're leaning into that to help you and your team deliver your best?
We use Matador for our texting platform, and it works well. The one thing about AI is it doesn't ever forget to text somebody back. It doesn't forget. And I think that we focus on all those customers that are getting re-engaged from people that we may have missed. And all day long, I mean, we have clients constantly that'll say, hey, I've been talking to you online. I've never spoke to them.
Yeah.
But, that they've got those messages from me. And of course, I just, I lean right into that and try to, get them whatever the assistance that we can do for them. But, I think as far as AI goes, I'm no different than anyone. Dealers embrace change when it comes to, will this help us sell more cars? And so, if as products come along and are developed, I'm certainly going to be watching for all of them. But I don't like to get caught up in the, I just still want to focus on taking care of customers, treating people right. And I don't think that, AI robots in the showroom are close by that are going to be doing that. And it could happen in my lifetime. But for now, I just try to focus on the basics. And like I said, we do use those products, but I think that it's a little bit overhyped is how I feel about it.
Yeah. How do you reduce the noise as you get so many solicitations from different companies saying, hey, use this tool, use that tool? And do you look to other dealers? Do you look for best practice? Do you come to the Daily Dealer Live to see what actually works and get your feedback from here? It's a 20 group here we've got.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We're fortunate because I'm in a large automotive group. We have 50 or 60 other dealerships that we share best practices. And if someone's having success with a product, plus we have support from our home office, with introducing products and looking at products. So normally I defer to them, let them vet out what's not useful. But no, I think you're spot on. I found a car dealership guy years ago because I was trying to find, a voice from dealers and from other people that you can learn from. Yeah. And I listen to every podcast, and it's just, you always can find information that's helpful.
Chase, we did not pay you to say that. That was not shameless self-promotion, but we love it and we'll take it. So Saved by Zero. I love this comment from Saved by Zero. I have 40 years of car ownership and I've never had a solicitation from the service lane. Thoughts on that? Wow. That's shocking.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of missed opportunity. I always say that everyone in the car world has always, when someone has a bill that's too big on their car, the advisor says, well, maybe you should look at trading. But I mean, there's so many clients that would love to see the new models. Everyone wants a new car. So I think that just like I said, you don't want to hassle service customers and turn them off, but making sure that you're having those conversations is really important.
All right. One KPI you look at every single morning that guides your day, guides a lot of your decision making, is super important to you running the store.
The main thing I focus on is appointments. I mean, if we're set up with no one coming in, we got work to do. And so we really focus on appointments, but more than appointments are confirmations. We call and confirm our appointments and really get the customers excited about the salesperson, excited about coming to the dealership, and let them know that I'm going to be here to help them when they get here. And a lot of times the customers on the fence, you can make them feel at ease, answer those questions. And so I think that confirmed appointments is the number one thing that drives our business.
I love it. And
on that vein,
Yeah.
real quick. So I'm with you as far as appointments, right? My mantra was always, I need appointments today, tomorrow, and Saturday, regardless of the day of the week. Do you do anything to motivate your sales department or BDC department, if you have one, to get some same day set solds? I mean, those are the money.
Yeah, we do constant different contests, different spiffs, all based around appointments, to try to generate. The main thing that everyone knows when they see me walking through the showroom, I'm saying, who do you got coming in? I'm not how's the weather. I want to know, who do we got? What's working?
Yeah.
Who do we got coming in?
Yeah.
And so if they see me, their eyes light up if they know they've got no one. Because if you're walking around and don't have someone coming in, you need to be on the phone or doing something.
So you've had success. You're leading a store. You're guiding a team. We appreciate your perspectives here on the show. If you were to go back to the beginning of your career, what would you say to the young you first got into automotive about the future of automotive? Is it as bright today as it's been in the past? What advice would you give yourself down the road? We'll end on that question.
Yeah, the main thing I would tell younger Chase is think longer term. Don't think shorter term. And I feel like you underestimate what you can accomplish in a decade. And, when you're young, you just think, I remember they told me we didn't get paid for 45 days. And I was like, that sounded like 10 years from now for me when I started in the car business. And all these years later, I just think that if you plan longer term, you can accomplish so much more. And so dream bigger, think bigger, and you would be shocked at what you can accomplish versus looking so short term.
A few episodes ago, Yossi and I were talking about the benefits of compounding interest. And that is so true in this automotive industry, not just financially, though it certainly applies, but it's also compounding experience. It's compounding training. You start training today on a topic and you do it every single day. A lot of people underestimate the value or the amount of development and what they can achieve and accomplish, Chase, to your perspective. So that's awesome. Well, Chase Channell, General Manager, Victory Honda Jackson, thanks for being on the show. We appreciate you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Chase.
Yuli, you guys are both saying the same thing, but I love that he is involved every single day. I love that he's at the desk. I love that he's guiding his team. And some of those most basic things that create a successful team, he has his eyes laser focused on those things. Appointments, right? Desking deals.
For sure.
Michelle says repetition creates mastery. I'm going to drop another Russian thing. Повторение мать учения, which is exactly the same thing, Michelle. So
1% better every day, baby. That's what we need.
That's right.
Mindset.
That's
I'm watching it play out firsthand right now. So obviously, my son's 14. He got in a little trouble before school ended, so I took away most of the electronics, but he's still allowed to play chess. And we went from him getting beat by me mercilessly, relentlessly over and over again to now I'm like losing most of the games because he's gotten way better than 1% better every day. So
that's that happens. Was skiing with my kids. Yeah, you're pulling them up one day and you can't even ski with them anymore later. So all right. Next up, we turn to Anna Del Villar, head of CDG editorial, for this week's breakdown. Anna, welcome to the show.
Hey guys. Hey,
Anna,
really excited to be back today.
Hey. Anna, you've got your own graphics. Again, we've all gone and grown up. It's so much fun. So
I love it. I've always wanted intro music.
That's right. Well, Anna, take us into the breakdown.
Yeah, day in and day out, I'm talking to dealers, analysts, other industry professionals, just trying to find out the most timely and relevant trends in automotive retailing. And, for this week's breakdown, we tackled a topic that I think is flying way under the radar. And that's in the mergers and acquisitions market. regional buyers are stepping in where the publics have been kind of pulling back. And there are three specific strategies these dealers are using to win deals and stay operationally sharp. First, they're evaluating stores with extreme discipline. Matt Bowers, who has been on the show before, is a dealer down in the Southeast with several stores. And he told me he gets opportunities thrown at him left and right all the time. And he runs them all through, a very specific filter. He starts by analyzing the local market. What's the economy of the town or county look like? Is it growing in size? What's the population looking like? And if I'm looking at a Nissan store, how close is the next Nissan store? But then he goes a step further and he actually pulls up the real estate on Google Street View. He counts the service bays and, has a little formula that he uses to, calculate the potential there. And, if he can't see real estate wise, if, the service drive can get to 18 or 20 bays, then he's just out. He told me there's no point in buying where you can't grow your fixed operations department. If you can't expand, the building, then you can't expand your gross. In the Northeast, though, Jerry Raymond, he looks at two numbers, how many cars the manufacturer says the store should be selling, but also another service drive metric, the repair order count. And he told me that, might seem a little bit silly to other people, but he wants to know, are customers showing up for service and not buying cars or vice versa? He wants to start planning for those problems or, those efforts to change the numbers. And that kind of goes into the second strategy that I really found talking with these dealers. And that's, they move fast, but they plan ahead. Jerry told me that it's nice, he doesn't have anyone he has to answer to. He's the decision maker. He doesn't have 10 family members or a board of directors. And that speed really comes in handy when a good deal surfaces quickly. But it's executing that transitional period of, bringing on a new store. That's really what matters most. And Matt doesn't waste any time. When he brings on a store, DMS conversions, website changes, comp plan adjustments, they all happen in week one. And he told me, he already has a feeling he's going to change it. He's going to change most things. And so why wait? He told me that every dealer in this business knows that as soon as that, contract is inked and that deal is done, the dealership is a whole different entity now. And, thirdly, we're seeing some dealers that are, really gaining this operational leverage by staying local. I immediately thought of Larry Morgan, and he has, 70 plus stores in Florida, he and his son Brett. And, that concentration of region, it gets stronger with each new acquisition. It's kind of like a compounding effect. Think bulk vendor pricing or easier staffing. It's easier to convince maybe a manager to move 20 miles to a different store and he doesn't have to uproot his family or, change his life too drastically. And there's also more efficient marketing, when you have such a an area that you're consolidated in. But what's interesting for Larry is it didn't start that way. He early on said that, he was using, totally different DMS systems for each store. And he would spend half the day just trying to figure out what was happening. But nowadays, with, the system that they have in place, when a customer's lease is ending at a Toyota store, a sister Honda store across town can follow up and their customers can kind of go in and out of service drives at their different locations without missing a beat. So I think at the end of the day, as more of these high performing stores come to the market, and they will, the advantage is going to operators that they know the zip code, they know the people, and they just have a solid playbook behind them. And yeah, that's really what we determined this week for the breakdown. And I think it was a really interesting one.
Anna, it is always awesome to have you on and bring the perspectives that you're researching. I don't know of too many other entities that are as vigorous at going out and getting dealer feedback, sentiment, and trying to understand common trends that are happening in the industry. It would be great in a future Daily Dealer segment to have a couple dealers come in and talk about their process for acquiring new stores. To your point, it is interesting. You get economy of scale, geographically being in a similar area and using similar large scale vendors. And when you think about that, the interview we just did, having a Honda store like that, where you've got a highly engaged GM that understands that local market and is giving back to the local market in a unique and interesting way. As large groups expand, he's part of a large group. You can still preserve that small feel where you're really connected to the community. You're employing local people and you're giving back in unique and interesting ways. And that's pretty cool. That's some of the points that you've uncovered this week, Anna. So thanks for bringing us the breakdown.
Yeah. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks as always.
We'll see you next week. And our audience
Thanks,
out
Anna.
there, our Daily Dealer Live audience, if Anna calls you up, take that call, have that conversation. She is a wealth of information out there in the world. So today's episode of the Daily Dealer Live is brought to you by Impel. Dealers everywhere are delivering concierge level customer experiences with Impel's AI operating system. Learn how to ditch disjointed customer engagement at impel.ai/CDG. Or if you're on a laptop or desktop, get that phone out and you can scan that QR code. And then, as I always say, you can try to figure out how to get that QR code if you're on the phone. But thanks to Impel for supporting the show and bringing a lot of today's content to us. All right, let's go next up. General Manager of Checkered Flag Jaguar Land Rover. Let's turn to Michael Wood. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Welcome.
We appreciate you coming and joining. So our first question always, Michael, is how on earth is business in your neck of the woods this July 11th, 2025?
July's going great, man. We've started off. It's been a phenomenal month. We've had a great week so far, which has been excellent to see. Business has been a little slow for us, but a few months back we put some intentionality around acquisition of used cars, and we're starting to reap what we were sowing. So it's been nice. It's been fun to see, and it's been nice to see the curving going upwards, especially this month.
So that's interesting. You noted a trend, a declining trend. Some people in the industry saw that, and you implemented intentional steps to reverse that trend, and they've worked. What are one or two of the things that you've done that have really turned that around for you today or this month?
Well, we put a lot of emphasis, excuse me, onto our KBB buying center. We understood that we needed more used cars. I needed to feed the service beast. I needed to feed my staff to have, opportunities for them to actually sell a vehicle. And so we also accepted the fact that buying a vehicle at auction was just didn't pencil out for us on the P&L. So we doubled down, tripled down in some instances when it comes to the money that we were paying to acquire a vehicle at the door. And at the door, it could be a KBB buyer, it could be a service drive buyer, whatever it is. Those typically we acquire at a better price to market. And then that affords us a better IPO when we bring the vehicle to the market. And then the turn's going to be faster, thus lowering, the amount of holding costs that we end up paying on the car. So we're trying to create this environment to where we can acquire the car at a less value, not just to make more gross profit, but to turn the car faster by being able to offer it to the marketplace at a lower price to market than most dealers would with that fresh inventory. Now, obviously, market day supply could demand that vehicle should warrant a higher initial price offering, but that's how all stocks are.
Yeah. So do you track the difference in acquisition cost between auction and other sources? What is that dollar difference?
It's pretty substantial. I mean, we're talking over $1,500 to $2,000 in front end margin difference between
Wow.
acquiring the car at the front door and an auction. And I think it goes further more than that because it goes into the expense side of it too. How quickly does that auction car sell versus the car that we buy at the door? And what we found is that the cars that we purchase at the door or on KBB typically transact 2 times as fast as the ones we buy at the auction. Because why did it get to the auction in the first place? I mean, that's the real question.
Yeah. 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 What are you? So KBB is one source. Are you doing anything with your employees, like a buy center or anything like that, where you're acquiring directly from through employees? We've had a couple people on that have talked about that process.
We don't have anything that we're doing directly after our employees, but we are a KBB buying center.
Yeah.
And I have, a pot of gold spiff that for every vehicle we acquire, money goes into it. The top agent that acquires the most gets the whole pot of gold. Fun things like that that
Wow.
are a bit old school, but still, everybody's coin operated is the way I look at it. So if I want the behavior, then I'm going to Pavlov my way into it.
So what's the pot at? What was the biggest pot at on the on the giveaway?
The most we acquired was 23 cars, and it got up to $100 per car. So the pot got up to $2,300. And for a staff of 4
Nice.
people, picking up that $2,300 is a pretty big chunk of change. Hey, I mean, that could be somebody's mortgage.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
love how you can gamify that, Yuli.
I got a question for you
Yeah.
on the used car side. Being that you're a JLR store, um, your average transaction price on the used car side, you obviously track that. What would that be?
We're in like the 47 to 48 range, and we are really trying to push that down, but understanding that the client comes to the Jag Land Rover website for a reason, and typically they know the price point of our cars. So I don't want to shy away from the fact that a client may want a C63 AMG or something to that extent. I'm not afraid of those cars. But if I'm going after vehicles to acquire, I'm intentionally going after lower price point vehicles just because, hey, I'd rather have a $30,000 widget and turn it every 30 days than a $100,000 widget and turn it every 30 days.
So Michael,
Absolutely.
we went super deep on this, and I want to back up just a second and give everybody a chance to get to know you. Tell our CDG audience that doesn't know you, who are you, where are you, what do you do, before we jump back in.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia. I work for Checkered Flag Motor Car Company. We represent 14 of the best brands here in the Hampton Roads. We pretty much own the luxury market here in the Hampton Roads, whether it's Porsche, BMW, Audi, Genesis, or my 2 favorite, Jaguar, Land Rover. I've been with the company for about 13 years. I've been the general manager of this location since January of 2022, and I currently serve on the retailer cabinet for JLR. And it's been great. I mean, as you can see behind me, I'm a big fan of the brand. My wife and I own a Range Rover Sport. We drive what we sell because we love it, and so I've enjoyed it so far. Our group is a little different. We're a negotiation-free dealership, excuse me, and we're also single point of contact. So we're really, really different than the traditional model and what people might be used to when they're purchasing a vehicle.
So we want to ask you about that negotiation free and the one price piece, but also curious, JLR. JLR has been in the headlines on tariffs. Like, how have tariffs and some of the pricing constraints and uncertainties impacted your business, or has it?
It maybe slowed it down for a little bit, but I'm not focused on any of that, to be perfectly
Yeah,
honest. I can't control it. So at
that's
the
the
end of the
right
day,
answer. Yeah.
whatever JLR does, whatever the UK does, whatever the EU does, and whatever Trump does, that has nothing to do with what Mike Wood does on a day-to-day basis. And that's why we're
Love it.
focusing on getting into the used car business, because I can control that. And the used car touches every single one of my departments. So that's got to be what I focus on. And yes, I need to maintain my numbers though. I need to find a way amidst all of this to make sure that I'm hitting my new car volume numbers, to be a good retailer partner and do my part to make sure that the vehicles are getting moved through so they can continue to wholesale them and generate the revenue that they need to go through this storm. At the end of the day, it's a partnership, and all 3 parties involved, whether it's the customer, the retailer, or the OEM, are going to bear the burden of the tariffs. But I'm just not focused on it.
So you have you eliminated pricing negotiation. How long ago did you do that? You became one price.
So the group went in November of 2015, and the JLR store went in January of 2023. Us and the Porsche store were the last 2 stores to go negotiation free.
That's interesting. You went right in the middle of the COVID piece when inventory was tough to get. So you implemented that at a time when a lot of dealers were getting cost or sticker plus for Land Rover. Yeah.
It kind of made sense because everybody was ostensibly negotiation free. So if that's everybody's unique selling proposition, well, let's hold on to it then once everybody goes back to playing the games that they're going to play. And now we've afforded ourselves to maintain that USP without having to bearing the expense that typically goes with converting to that kind of sales process.
Yeah. So when you went from regular to negotiation free, what was the biggest challenge? Thinking of your sales team, your sales leadership, finance, all the other departments. What was the biggest challenge in that transition?
Man, it was really just trying to make people understand that just because you can't make $3,000 off of one transaction anymore means that you're not going to make money anymore. What
Yeah.
we had to constantly remind people of is, yes, you can't make that 3K deal, but what do you make per car on average? And what does the pay plan I'm presenting you show you that you can make per average? And if they're equal and or potentially better, and this model is better, and you can go to bed and sleep at night, what's wrong? Why not give it a shot? But that was the harsh part, the attrition. We had a lot of turnover, but that ended up turning into a strength, because it afforded us to bring people into the industry that otherwise probably wouldn't have considered it because of the way that we operate it.
Is there a type of a philosophy that you've trained your sales team and finance and sales leadership team on, or is it just simply, you know, this is the price? Like, was there a philosophy or a word track or a kind of a
Sure.
mindset that
Yeah,
drove it?
we have word tracks and we have a concept statement that'll answer pretty much any question their client might have, like how we price the vehicles. We price them based on how long they've been in stock, the model mix, things of that nature. And they are priced that way. A Range Rover Sport that's been in stock for 120 days is not going to be the same price as a Range Rover Sport that's been in stock for 10 days. So we've teach them all the different word tracks that they can utilize in that, but really it's kind of a cultural thing. They have to understand it's not limited negotiation. It is no negotiation. Customer wants a free hat. No, that's negotiating. Customer wants $500 for their trade. They'll pay our price now if you do that. No, that's negotiating. We can't do any of those things. So we have to
Yeah.
make sure that they understand that that is, the process is more important than any one deal.
How's that impacted CSI?
It's been phenomenal for it. I mean, customers love buying the cars here now.
Yeah.
It's a much more enjoyable process for the customer when you don't have that adversarial model. It's not trying to find one's pain threshold to transact. It's finding the least expensive vehicle that best fits that customer's need. Well, now you start to believe me when we're having that kind of conversation, as opposed to, well, I know you came in on this Range Rover, but man, I've got this Honda Civic over here that I know has 10 grand in gross on it. This is
Yeah.
the car for you. That
Yeah.
happens every day across America.
So at your store, sales handle the transaction all the way through finance. There is no separate F&I office. Um, I, I, pluses and minuses of that. Does it take a lot of training with salespeople to make that work? Do you have higher turnover in sales? What's your take on that?
It definitely takes more training, but I think we have less turnover in sales. You get less of that manageritis because what typically happens to that salesperson that's for 6 months or 9 months, that's the top dog, he or she already starts getting that manageritis is like, when's the next F&I position coming? And there's always a finite amount of F&I positions. But for us,
Yeah.
that next position is the elite product specialist position.
Yeah.
So they have that to look forward to. It's a bump up in pay. It's a bump up in, I apologize.
No,
Dogs
you're
are,
good.
it's a
Is that
bump
your
up in
dog? It's
pay.
got to be your dog there.
It is, yeah.
That's
I've got three
awesome.
mini doctors. Come here,
So,
Teddy. Stop.
so just so everybody knows, we saw this off screen. You've got a beautiful office there in your basement. You've got the dog
Thank
going
you.
around. You've got a beautiful wine cellar right next to you.
Yeah.
So, as the director pans out, this is one of the fun things about a live stream is we get to bring in all the things. So before I ask you what's one big challenge we have today, what concerns you or stresses you out the most? I just want to ask one more question on the sales to finance piece. I've seen in some organizations where they do sales to finance start to finish, salespeople will end up getting that manageritis and they'll go to a different store where they feel like they can make more money as a finance manager. How do you prevent that?
You prevent it by hiring people into your culture, right? Because once you've come into the negotiation free sales model, you may identify the fact that you can go to another traditional store and sell out of that store,
Yeah,
but you're going to realize quickly that their culture does not align with our culture.
that's a
And for
good
most
point.
people,
Yeah,
they won't want to buy into that anymore because they don't believe in
fair.
the traditional sales process.
Yeah.
And they also understand. I like to think my staff is a little bit more educated on the lifetime value of a client as opposed to the transactional value of a client.
Yeah. So we've been asked, Mike, before we go to that question, I've been social media has taken over the questioning here. I've been asked to ask you about your shoe collection. Andrew
I was gonna
Greenlove
say,
says, ask Mike about his shoe collection. So
I knew that had to be Andrew. Yeah, I'm a big Jordan fan. I've got quite a few pairs of Jordans, maybe upwards in the 50 to 60 range. And the funny part is over half of them are golf shoes. So yeah, I like my Jordans.
eh,
Thanks, Andrew.
how did collecting shoes becomes such a big deal. In our auto group, we've got a few of our GMs that just have extensive shoe collections, and they're not like these super expensive dress shoes. It's not like Allen Edmonds. It's what you have, Jordans and others. How'd you
And
get
don't
into?
sleep on the Jordans, though. I mean, some of these, I've got a pair of Jordan 4 golf shoes that are worth $900. So, I mean, that's like 3 pairs of Allen Edmonds.
Yeah. No, I know. They're yeah. The dress shoes are cheap compared to what you can get. You can get into them for thousands, right? So,
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
I always had a huge affinity for Jordan growing up. I mean, he's the GOAT, you know. And
yeah,
so as a kid, I couldn't really afford them that much, and now that I can, like I collect them, and it's fun. It's like a full circle thing for me. But I'm
yeah.
not one of the ones that just collects them. I wear them.
Yeah. Jordan is the GOAT. It's funny because our auto group, we're in NASCAR, and Jordan owns a NASCAR team. And I've been walking around with some, younger kids and whatnot, and said to them, "Hey, do you want to see where Michael Jordan is, pit side at NASCAR?" And they're like, not really." I'm like, "Are you kidding? He's the GOAT." And you can have him sign your shoes or something. So,
It's all these
um,
brawny babies.
yeah, that's fair. That's a fair point. So, what's one thing that really concerns you today in business as you're going forward in July of 2025? What's your biggest concern right now?
For me, I really think it's the survival of the dealer franchise model. I really fully believe that we are under attack from legacy OEMs, and not every one of them. I believe that certain OEMs generally want to be good partners with their retailers because they understand the value.
Yeah,
Joe Eberhardt's one of those guys. I mean, he gets it. He understands there's an immense value between having a relationship with the retailer and the OEM. But there are some OEMs out there that have proven that they don't care about the 75 to 100 years of sweat equity that generations of Americans have put in to create the dealer groups that we have now. They want all of it, and they're coming after us. And I think they're looking at any opportunity that they can, whether it's the lack of customer experience that we provide on the sales side of things, or it's the transactional way that we treat the way we treat the transactions, I should say, or even the advertising practices and the bait and switch and all of the litany of bad things that we have done to ourselves. We have to accept that we've done those things, and we need to correct them and move forward. If you genuinely believe the dealer franchise model is the way to go, then we have to be fighting this fight and showing it not just by saying we are good people, but by actually putting our processes out there and putting our money where our processes are, saying, all right, we're going to do it the right way. We're going to transact properly. We're not going to get one over on our clients. We're going to let them get one over on us instead. Yeah, sometimes you lose, but a lot
yeah.
of times when you lose in those situations, you win. And that changes the whole thought process around the industry.
So we had this as a conversation on the last show, and I'll go there in just a second. But what would you say? What would you say to the consumer that comes to you and they're like, "Hey, you know what? If the manufacturer wants to come direct to me, there's a lot of expense. There's a lot of middle people that it takes out of the equation. I can do it for less, more competitive, direct than I can through a dealer."
I would say that we provide you a lot of protections that unfortunately don't get looked at. We're constantly lobbying for the customer's experience. So when there's us between the OEM and the customer, you have a middle arbiter at that point. So you have somebody going to bat for you when the OEM just saying no. Now, if you're dealing directly with the OEM and they're telling you no, now you're going to have to go pay for that arbitration. You're going to have to go pay for whoever you are to get to step in to make that fix for you. And that's just one really specific example. But I like to think that the vast majority of dealers out there do a lot of good in their community too.
Yes,
And
I
so
think
let's not negate the amount of community involvement that we have as dealerships across this country and the amount of money that we pump back into our communities. That will dry up. The
yeah.
OEMs are not going to be as nice as we are when it comes to those kinds of things, just simply because they're not incentivized the way that the dealers are. And so let's not forget about that aspect of things. And I just fundamentally believe that if we stop focusing on the transactional side of the business and really start focusing on the experience in between the transaction points, the whole experience for the client, then it's not going to matter. My cost of acquisition is going to go down. My lifetime value for every single client is going to go up. And then my value goes up in the same time. I mean, so stop focusing on transactions, start focusing on experience.
And that's the bar that we in automotive are forced in this argument to raise. Like, it's up to us to deliver that high value because I think we are uniquely positioned to meet the customer where they want to be met, wherever that is, online, in store, in their garage, at the front of their school, at the front of their work, in a way that OEMs aren't as well positioned. So that brings me to another question that has actually been a topic since our last show: brokers. So brokers are essentially another step or another middle between a dealer and a customer. What's your take on the broker business?
I think it's a pointless business. I mean, you're just adding additional layers now with no added value. Like at least when you buy a car from me and you have a problem, I'm going to be there to help you out. Go call your broker 6 months after you bought that new Range Rover and you're having issues. Let's see how much he or she's going to help you in that situation after they cash that 5 to 10 grand, which mind you is often 2 to 3 times what I made on the transaction to begin with.
Yeah.
Just quit believing in the fact that this broker is saving you money and just go seek out the dealers that are trusted and transact with them.
Yeah. You share a similar
Preach.
perspective.
Preach.
So you share a similar perspective.
The brokers will never save you money. That is a
Never.
fact.
They don't work for free.
Although you have to acknowledge it is an interesting argument for all of us to be making. So you have a manufacturer, an OEM, where like, hey, dealers are better serving customers than the OEM would direct. And then we're saying, hey, there's this need that was created either by OEM pressure for units or lack of service by a dealer. The broker in some states has stepped in. We don't see it in my world, but I'm hearing from many that it's out there. A broker steps in and provides an additional step. Like it is an interesting argument to say, hey, we
It's just
provide
added
value.
expense.
This can't. It's the expense. Yeah. But we're
It's
in
just added
And,
expense. No, but
and,
Michael's
and,
hitting the
and,
nail on the head. You're in a one price situation. So you have completely eliminated the need for a broker. You could argue that, hey, I want a broker because I don't want to go and sit and negotiate in a dealership for the next 3-4 hours of my life. I get
then
that.
don't.
But there's institutions like yours and many others that exist that are one price. Hey, this is a pre-negotiated deal. It's a
Yeah.
fair profit for everyone. There's a profit is not a four-letter word. We're allowed to make money. You can waste your time in a dealership, or you can pay a broker a vig and pay even more money than you would by dealing directly with the dealership. And to your point, when, not if, when something goes wrong in your life cycle of ownership, who are you going to call? Your broker? No. You're going to call your local dealership that you should have a very good relationship with that's going to bend over backwards to help you out.
But I think you hit the nail on the head, though. The brokers came because we failed on the experience side of
Yes.
things. We
Yes.
created this
Yes.
environment that people
Absolutely.
just
Well,
loathed. I mean,
Yes.
we were put in the same sentiment as like timeshare salesmen. I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
or going to have like your teeth extracted. Like that's what
Yes.
buying a car was. We have to
Yeah.
accept we created that
Yes.
before we can ever fix it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Oh, there's the dog. That's awesome. That's awesome. And there's very few. Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. A couple of closing comments so we get here. Jesus Garat says, love it, Michael. I have 200 plus pair of sneakers myself. I've incorporated into my dealerships and the staff enjoys it as well.
My
Uh,
man.
that's a heck of a lot of fun. Brain Rot AI says, I love the one price strategy. Dealers often get caught in the rat race of constant price changes to compete with rivals, which delay their market visibility and from delivering value elsewhere. And then Andrew Breedlove comes in and says, Mike is huge into the customer experience, huge, one of the absolute best. And we appreciate the conversation and you really bringing out that one of our biggest challenge is the franchise model and delivering our best. There was a post that was posted, I think it was to Twitter or somewhere yesterday from the ATAE, the president of the Virginia Auto Dealers Association, almost 1 million views. And it's around that exact conversation, Tesla as direct versus dealers and the franchise model. And I think you summed it, Mike, best by saying it's up to us to deliver that awesome experience, transparent, fair, and connect unlike anybody else can. And if we do that, there's no threat. If we don't, we probably deserve what we get. Mike, fair? Closing comment?
I agree 100%. Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Well, Mike Wood, General Manager, Checkered Flag, Jaguar, Land Rover, we appreciate you being on the show. Thanks for sharing your perspective and your dog and your wine collection. So thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yuli, it's heating up. What a great conversation. In particular, the value that automotive provides. I hope every sales meeting this week has a clip from this show talking about the importance of really delivering on that experience. I heard today some people don't get offered the opportunity to buy a car in service. I heard today not everybody gets the door opened. Some of those things that you would assume are core to our processes in delivering
It's
our
entry
best to the
level.
customer
Yeah.
don't happen. And
Yeah.
shame on us. And then it puts our entire it reflects poorly on all of automotive, Yuli.
Well, listen, he started with it in the first segment. People need to adopt a longer term view in this business.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Yuli. Good show. Good show. Good show. Next up, we're back Monday. Thank you to our entire Daily Dealer Live audience for watching Daily Dealer Live, where we break down the biggest moves in the car business as they happen. Don't forget, we're here live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if this is your world, hit like, subscribe, turn on those notifications so you never, ever, ever miss a beat. We'll see you Monday, everybody.
We'll see you guys.